They didn't see it at first. Not the so-called friends. Not the so-called friends. Not even the family who claimed to love you. They saw your quietness as weakness. Your sensitivity as something to fix. Your silence as awkward. What they failed to notice was the storm inside you. A fire you didn't ask for, but were born with. You've always felt like the odd one out. In rooms full of people, you felt the static, a deep, crawling energy. You couldn't name it, but you knew something was off. People would either cling to you like moths to flame, or recoil like they'd brushed against something too sacred to touch. And both reactions hurt, because no one stayed. Not really. That's how it begins for the chosen. You weren't taught this in school. No one warned you that your presence would start to shake things, that you'd step into a room and certain people would suddenly fidget, their voices crack, their smiles twitch into frowns. You thought it was your fault. You overanalyzed your reflection, tried to adjust your tone, changed your posture, filtered your truth, but it wasn't you. It was your light, and your light was making the darkness tremble. You see, darkness recognizes light. Even when people don't, even when you don't. There are spirits that move through people energies, that inhabit spaces, families, entire bloodlines, and those spirits are disturbed when someone born with divine fire shows up. You didn't choose to become a mirror, but that's exactly what you are. A mirror that forces others to face what they've ignored, and that scares them. That's why they ghosted you without explanation. That's why they betrayed you, slandered you, twisted your purity into poison. That's why they copied your gifts in secret, then mocked you in public. They weren't reacting to you. They were reacting to the effect you had on what was hiding inside them. Chosen one, you are not ordinary. You were never meant to blend in. Your very DNA was forged in fire, spiritual fire. You carry a light that doesn't just shine. It exposes. You've probably noticed the patterns by now. You don't even need to speak. Before energy shifts, people look at you longer than usual. Some with awe, some with resentment. You make people feel seen without trying. You awaken things they've buried. And here's the truth that might chill you. The darkness has always noticed you, and it's been trying to suppress you since the moment you were born. But the problem is, it can single quotes, "Oh, it tried." Through rejection, through loss, through relentless emotional warfare, you faced abandonment that should have broken you. You've walked through fires that would have incinerated most. You've questioned your own sanity, prayed for the pain to stop, screamed into your pillow, wondering why God kept stripping everything and everyone away. But here you are, still standing, still glowing, still chosen. That's because the darkness never had power over you. It just hoped you'd forget how powerful you are. It hoped to distract you with loneliness, weariness, anxiety, isolation. It hoped you'd bury your light beneath shame and survival. It hoped you'd silence your voice, dull your shine, drown your purpose in temporary pleasures and counterfeit love, but it failed. Because every time you were knocked down, something ancient stirred in your spirit. You remembered, even if only for a moment. That's what scares the darkness most. Not just your light, but your awakening. Because a chosen one who knows who they are, that's unstoppable. That's a weapon. That's a force of nature. And that's exactly what you're becoming. Every loss has been a sharpening. Every betrayal, a redirection. Every lonely night has been a sacred invitation, not to punish you, but to prepare you. You weren't set apart to be broken. You were set apart to be crowned. Even now, as you read this, Your light is pushing back the fog. There are forces that have followed your bloodline for generations. Patterns of addiction, depression, fear, failure, and your very existence is the interruption. You are the wall they can't pass through, the door they can't open, the light that burns too hot for them to endure. So they tried to kill it early, through heartbreak, through betrayal. But you survived, and now the darkness is submitting to your light. Don't look for confirmation from the world. They still won't get it, but the spirit realm sees it clearly. That's why the attacks have been heavier. That's why you feel like you're carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken burdens. That's why some days you don't even want to get out of bed, because your awakening is not small, it's cosmic. But here's the deeper truth. You were never meant to fight alone. Heaven has backed you from the beginning. You have angels that have fought battles for you you'll never see. You have protection you didn't even know to pray for. You have authority that even demons recognize. And that's why they whisper. That's why they come in the form of anxiety, procrastination, doubt, and false comfort. Because they know the moment you fully remember who you are, the chains break, not just off you, but off your whole bloodline. So if you've been wondering why life's been this hard, this is why. Because your light is ancient, your presence is disruptive, and your very breath is warfare. The darkness saw you coming, and it trembled, but you're just beginning to understand what you carry. And when you fully do, every force that tried to destroy you will wish it never touched you. There's a reason the enemy came for you so young, before you had a voice, before you knew what purpose meant, before you even understood the difference between good and evil. The spiritual war had already started. The rejection you felt as a child, the bullying, the sense that you didn't belong anywhere that wasn't random, that was targeted. That was the darkness, identifying what you carried before you even knew what it was. The enemy always senses destiny before the destined do. That's why they shamed your emotions. That's why they called you too sensitive. That's why your family made you feel like the burden. They weren't consciously trying to break you, but spiritually, something was working through them. A system designed to dim you before you could ignite. It worked on others in your bloodline. They stayed silent, settled, became bitter, gave up, but you were different. You were stubborn in a divine way. You couldn't make peace with fake friends or soul-crushing jobs. You couldn't pretend the toxicity didn't bother you. You felt it. Every room, every relationship, every hidden agenda. You felt it in your bones, and you didn't know why. Now you do. That feeling was your gift. That pain was proof. You were never built to be numb. Numbness is how darkness spreads. Sensitivity. Spiritual sensitivity is how the light detects what needs to be cast out. But in a numb world, the sensitive are made to feel broken, when in truth, they're just awake, and that's what you are now. Awake to the illusions. Awake to the manipulation. Awake to the spiritual war that's been raging behind every seemingly normal moment. You used to think people were just off. Now you see the spiritual forces behind their behavior. You used to blame yourself for being the common denominator. Now you see it was your presence all along that was shifting things. Because your light doesn't ask for permission. It reveals. It confronts. It cleanses. That's why you can't keep certain friends. That's why family gatherings feel heavy. That's why romantic partners either flee or cling too tightly. It's not because you're unworthy. It's because your energy is sacred. and sacred things make demons tremble. Even the ones people are still carrying. Unknowingly, you've been trying to explain yourself to people who aren't even equipped to see you. That's why it feels so lonely, so exhausting, so isolating. But this isolation is not punishment, it's placement. You've been pulled away to be poured into. Heaven has kept you hidden on purpose, not because you're forgotten, but because you're being forged. Your silence is sacred ground. Your solitude is preparation. Your wilderness isn't empty, it's pregnant with transformation. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs what you uniquely carry. But you can't carry it if you're still begging to be accepted by those who were never meant to understand you. You keep trying to fit where you're supposed to shift. Chosen one, you were born to disrupt, to provoke change, to expose dysfunction, to carry healing. That's why the darkness has thrown everything at you. Sickness, betrayal, anxiety, financial struggle, heartbreak. Not because you're cursed, but because you're covered. If you weren't covered, you'd already be gone. But you're still here. And that means something. Every time the enemy thought they had you, you rose again. Even in silence, even in pain, even when no one clapped for you, you kept going. And you don't even realize how powerful that is. Because most people stop, they stay down, they fold, but you don't know how to quit. Even when you try, something in you won't let go. That's your anointing speaking. That's your purpose pulling you forward even when logic says stop. Even when you're tired, misunderstood, unappreciated, unseen. The truth is, you were seen. Before you were born, heaven approved you before man could reject you. You weren't just chosen, you were sent on assignment. And the very things that were sent to break you are now being used to build you. Your pain has become a map. Your wounds, altars, your tears have watered the seeds of wisdom most will never access. That's why you walk into a room and feel everything. That's why you can't tolerate shallow conversations. That's why you crave depth, truth, and sacred connection, because surface-level living isn't in your design. You were born from the deep, and you're called to pull others into it. But not everyone will want to go, and that's okay. Some people prefer darkness, some choose comfort over truth. You are not here to drag people, you're here to shine so bright that the ones who are ready will find you. Let the rest walk away. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you strange, too intense, too spiritual. Their opinions are not your assignment. Your light is, and that light is growing daily, silently, supernaturally, even in your weakest moments. It's burning through fear. Even on your worst days, it's melting chains you didn't even know you had. You're not waiting to become powerful, you already are. And the darkness knows it. That's why it whispers louder just before your breakthrough. That's why it sends distractions dressed as blessings. That's why it tries to pull you back into old versions of yourself, through shame, temptation, fear, comfort. But here's the truth. The old you is gone. The one who begged to be loved, the one who apologized for their intuition, the one who played small to be accepted. That version of you had to die, because the real you is a threat. You're not here to blend in. You're here to bring heaven down, to challenge systems, to shatter generational curses, to show what happens when a soul refuses to bow to darkness. And as you rise, as you remember, you'll start to see it more clearly. People will either fall off or fall in love with your frequency. Doors that once slammed shut will open without knocking. And every lie you believed about your worth will dissolve in the presence of truth. The truth is this: you're not broken. You're blazing. You're not too much. You're just too real for shallow spaces. You're not behind. You're being refined. You are not lost. You are becoming, and no darkness, no force, no person, no demon can stop what's unfolding in you now, because the light you carry, it's not just for you, it's for generations. It's for healing, it's for war, it's for glory. There's something terrifying about discovering how powerful you actually are, not because you're afraid of the power itself, but because deep down, you always suspected it. You always felt something burning beneath your skin, a knowing you couldn't explain, a gravity in your spirit that pulled you towards something more. You didn't ask for it. You didn't pray for it. You were born with it. And for the longest time, you thought it was a curse, because all it seemed to bring was loneliness. But now you're starting to understand. The loneliness wasn't a curse, it was a cocoon. You couldn't grow wings around people who were addicted to crawling. You couldn't evolve in a place that demanded you stay small. You couldn't carry divine light into rooms where people were determined to stay in the dark. And so the separation began. Not because you were bad, not because you failed, but because your frequency became incompatible with their reality. And here's the painful truth. Some people would rather lose you than confront their own shadows. Your growth becomes an insult to their stagnation. Your healing becomes a mirror they can't bear to look into. But even still, you kept loving them. You kept shrinking yourself to make them feel bigger. You kept silencing your intuition so they'd feel more secure. You kept putting yourself last, hoping, praying, sacrificing, all in the name of loyalty, all in the name of love, until one day the light inside you refused to be dimmed any longer. It started slowly. The same conversations began to feel hollow. The same spaces that used to comfort you now felt suffocating. You couldn't laugh at the same jokes. You couldn't gossip the way you used to. Even the music you once loved felt different. Everything started to feel off. That wasn't depression. That wasn't boredom. That was elevation. That was your soul outgrowing its old skin. And the moment you stopped pretending was the moment the spiritual war got louder. Suddenly, people accused you of changing, of thinking you're better, of becoming too deep. You weren't doing anything wrong, but their demons couldn't handle your deliverance. Your awakening was setting off alarms in the spiritual realm. And darkness doesn't go down without a fight. You were never just dealing with people. You were dealing with assignments. Spiritual strongholds hiding in plain sight. Generational trauma wearing a friendly face. Demonic residue showing up as emotional manipulation and the light in you. It disturbed them, because light doesn't argue, it doesn't force, it doesn't beg. It just shows up, and suddenly what was hidden can't hide anymore. That's what you are now, an atmosphere shifter. People don't always know why they feel uncomfortable around you, but their spirit knows. The mask they've worn for years starts to slip. Their defense mechanisms crack. Their wounds rise to the surface, and some will thank you. Others will hate you, but very few will remain unchanged. That's the weight of being chosen. It's not glamour, it's not applause. It's the long nights, the misunderstood seasons, the weeping prayers no one sees. The warfare you fight in silence while still showing up for others. It's feeling everything more deeply. It's being called to lead when all you want to do is rest. It's carrying people in prayer who would never do the same for you, but still you carry, because something in you knows this isn't just about you. Your pain has purpose. Your struggle has strategy. Your life is a blueprint for others who are still wandering. And whether they know it or not, they're watching you. Watching how you rise after heartbreak. Watching how you worship through the storm. Watching how you move through life with a quiet kind of courage that exposes every lie the world taught them. You are a living contradiction to everything darkness preaches. You walk through fire and don't smell like smoke. You get rejected and love harder. You cry and still keep going. You lose everything and somehow come back with more. That's not just resilience. That's anointing. That's divine backing. That's evidence that the light in you isn't man-made. It's heaven-sent. And the enemy hates that. He can't predict you. He can't control you. He's tried everything. Distraction, delay, discouragement. He's tried to wear you out. He's whispered lies into your sleep. He's isolated you, hoping you'd break. But instead, you've been building, in silence, in prayer, in obedience. You've been turning every wound into wisdom, every loss into legacy, and now you're dangerous. Because you no longer need validation to move. You no longer require a crowd to feel seen. You no longer wait for permission to shine. You've learned how to become in secret, and there's nothing more threatening to darkness than someone who's discovered their identity. Apart from external approval, that's you now. You don't just carry light. You are light, and where light enters, darkness has no choice but to submit, not fight, not negotiate. Submit. That's why your very presence causes spiritual agitation. That's why people suddenly confess things around you. That's why others feel exposed in your silence. You are a walking altar, a divine mirror, a shift in the atmosphere, and you can't unsee what you now see. You can't go back to shallow. You can't pretend you're not aware. You can't unfeel what your spirit knows, and that's okay. You were never meant to stay where you started. You were never meant to please everyone. You were meant to carry the kind of light that makes demons tremble and heavens smile. So walk boldly. Walk lit, even if you're shaking, even if they whisper, even if you're walking alone. You're not walking toward purpose, you're walking in it. Every step, every scar, every silent prayer, it's all proof that the fire didn't consume you, it forged you. And now you're ready to shine in ways you never imagined. There's a moment on every chosen one's path when the darkness realizes it can't touch you anymore, and it panics. It doesn't come as a dramatic battle. It's not some loud explosion or obvious confrontation. No, when the darkness sees that its grip on you is slipping, it does something far more subtle. It tries to whisper doubt into your soul. It tries to make you second-guess the transformation you've gone through. It brings back old habits dressed as comfort, old friends disguised as new beginnings, and old wounds wearing the face of healing. Because, here's the truth, once you've awakened to your light, the only weapon darkness has left is manipulation. And manipulation only works when you forget who you are. But you're not who you used to be anymore. That version of you, the one who used to settle, the one who begged to be understood, the one who tolerated energy that drained your spirit, is gone. That old identity was burned away in the fire. All that remains now is the refined version, the called version, the one who has faced shadows and refused to kneel. And still, the darkness tries. Not because it doesn't know you're chosen, but because it does. It will come through relationships that feel good, but carry no depth. Opportunities that look shiny, but lack divine alignment. Situations that tempt your flesh, but poison your soul, and when you resist, it'll try to convince you that you're missing out, that you're being too spiritual, that you're isolating yourself. But don't fall for the illusion, because what feels like isolation is often consecration. You've been set apart, rejected, you've been hidden, not abandoned. God has been protecting you from platforms that would have corrupted you, from people who would have contaminated you, and from timelines that would have crushed you. He slowed you down so you'd grow deep. He withheld recognition so you'd root in truth, not applause. He allowed you to be overlooked so you'd become overqualified in the spirit. And now the light you carry can no longer be contained. It's leaking through your words. It's felt in your silence. It's encoded in your presence. People can sense something different in you, even if they can't explain it. They're drawn to it. Some are inspired by it. Others are intimidated. But none of them can ignore it. You're not just a person anymore. You're an encounter. And with that comes a responsibility, not to be perfect but to be authentic, to speak what's real, to stand in truth even when it costs you, to walk in love without shrinking, to lead with compassion, not fear, to serve without needing a stage, because your life isn't a performance, it's a portal. Every conversation is an opportunity to release healing. Every room you walk into is a chance to shift the atmosphere. Every decision you make is a ripple that touches souls you may never meet. And that's why the pressure has been so intense. That's why the warfare felt endless. Because this was never just about your survival, it's about your impact. You're carrying frequencies that undo generational curses. You're holding revelations that break religious chains. You're embodying a level of freedom that challenges every false system around you. And the enemy hates that you're still standing. He threw abandonment at Ubud. You found your worth. He sent betrayal, but you stayed soft. He attacked your mind, but you found peace anyway. He tried to bury you, but didn't realize you were a seed. You've grown in dark places. You've blossomed through adversity. You've become dangerous to anything that wants to keep people asleep. And that's exactly why the light in you is non-negotiable now. You can't keep watering yourself down to avoid confrontation. You can't keep dimming your voice to keep the peace. You can't keep apologizing for being called. You are not arrogant, you're anointed. And that anointing isn't just for you. It's for everyone assigned to your light. They won't always thank you. They won't always understand you. Some will even fight you. But when the dust settles and their own storms hit, they'll remember the one who carried light when everyone else was surviving in shadows. That's you. You're not here to convince anyone. You're here to be, to walk in such integrity, such power, such truths that even your silence speaks. You don't need to scream to make impact. You don't need to be everywhere to be effective. Light doesn't chase darkness. It stands, it shines, and everything around it shifts. So stop shrinking, stop apologizing, stop looking back. The time for hiding is over. You've been tested, tried, and tempered. You've walked through hell and kept your hands clean. You've battled things others didn't even notice, still chose love. That kind of endurance doesn't come from willpower. It comes from being marked by something eternal. And now it's your time, not to arrive, but to radiate, to let your life testify, to move in silence and shake the spiritual realm, to live in such alignment that even demons whisper your name in fear. You're not called to be liked. You're called to be light. And light doesn't compete. It just shows up and everything has to adjust. You're walking into rooms. Your enemies thought you'd never survive long enough to see. You're unlocking blessings they tried to delay. You're walking in authority that cannot be explained, only witnessed. Because what's on you is not man-made, it's divine, it's sacred, it's untouchable, and that's why darkness is submitting to your light. You've walked with angels in silence and wrestled with demons in your dreams. You've stood in the middle of invisible wars and didn't even flinch. And now, the same darkness that tried to own you bows to your light. But here's something they don't tell you. The real test doesn't come before the breakthrough. It comes after, because now that you're glowing, the shadows want to be near you again, but this time they come dressed in admiration. The same people who doubted your calling now want to be connected to your power. The same ones who distanced themselves from your fire now want to sit in its warmth. But chosen one, this is not the time to lose your discernment, because with great light comes great visibility, and with great visibility comes strategic attacks, not always through obvious enemies, but through the familiar, the close, the seemingly safe. This is when the enemy gets clever. He doesn't come to scare you anymore. He comes to seduce you. He offers you validation you no longer need. He tempts you with shortcuts to things God already promised you. He tries to rush your process by convincing you that you're behind. And if you're not careful, you'll step into traps disguised as blessings. But the light in you knows. It always knows. There's a frequency in your spirit now that can't be deceived. It picks up the subtle shift in tone. It senses when someone's intention is off, even if their words are perfect. It recognizes when a door is open but not divine. That's your gift now. That's the price of carrying true light, you see. Everything. And sometimes that means saying no to things everyone else is applauding. It means turning down platforms that lack integrity. It means walking away from connections that feel good but drain your spirit. It means choosing purpose over popularity every single time. Because your calling isn't a brand, it's a burden. A sacred one, a holy one. A weight that not everyone can carry, which is why you were chosen. And now that you've survived the process, now that your light is visible, the pressure has changed, but it hasn't disappeared. You'll feel the pull to go back to old versions of yourself just to fit in. You'll feel the temptation to explain your growth to people who never saw your struggle. You'll feel the guilt of rising while others around you are still stuck. But none of that is your burden to carry, because you didn't take this light. It was given to you, given through nights of silence, given through years of rejection, given through moments where you chose truth when lies were easier. Every scar on your heart, every tear you didn't show, every prayer you whispered through clenched teeth, they built this version of you. And now your light is not just survival, a signal to others walking through their own darkness, a reminder that they're not alone, that there is a way through, that isolation doesn't mean abandonment, that pain has a purpose, that suffering is not the end, it's the beginning of sight. Because only those who've tasted darkness can truly understand light. You get it now. You feel things before they happen. You pick up on spiritual shifts before anyone else. You walk into a room and immediately know what's unseen. That's not paranoia. That's sensitivity. That's your spirit tuned to a higher frequency. And that's why you can't stay silent anymore. The world doesn't need more perfection, it needs presence. It needs people who have been broken and still chose love. People who've been betrayed and still walk in trust. People who've known darkness intimately and yet refused to become it. That's you. You are not the voice of fear. You are not the echo of trauma. You are the sound of healing in a frequency few can hear, but everyone feels. When you speak, you don't just talk, you shift. When you create, you don't just entertain, you awaken. When you show up, you don't just exist, you ignite. Because your presence is warfare. You being alive, being whole, being you is a threat to every force that tried to destroy you. You think it was just depression. You think it was just loneliness. You think it was just anxiety. No, it was a coordinated spiritual attack because the enemy saw who you were before you did. He saw the blueprint. He saw the timeline. He saw the souls tied to your obedience, and he panicked. So he tried to silence you before you found your voice, tried to isolate you before you realized your power, tried to destroy your identity before you remembered your divinity, but he failed. Because look at you now, still breathing, still rising, still shining, and the light in you is no longer negotiable. So let them stare, let them question, let them call you too intense, too spiritual, too different. They don't understand yet, and that's okay. Your job isn't to be understood. Your job is to shine. Relentlessly, authentically, unapologetically, because you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break through, and now that darkness has submitted to your light. The next step isn't to rest, it's to lead. Lead with your presence, lead with your truth, lead with your stillness, lead with your frequency. Not everyone will follow, but the ones who are meant to will find you. They'll feel you before they hear you. They'll see your light and remember their own. You are a walking permission slip for others to be free. So don't dim now. Don't shrink. Has shifted, and this time, you're not fighting to survive. You're radiating to transform. So, if this message spoke to your soul, then just sit in silence. Let it move you. Because chosen ones aren't called to consume truth. They're called to carry it. To be the living evidence that light wins, that wounds can become weapons, that silence can birth sound, that isolation was preparation, not punishment. Share this with someone who's forgotten their glow. Drop a comment if you felt the shift, if your light has been rising even while your world was shaking.